Ladies and gentlemen, this is a real treat for us because we are going to warm things up here with, in my opinion, the heart and soul of CCW and the CWO. And we're getting him literally just a few short weeks after winning those CCW Tag Team Championships. And what a colory Christmas carol it was for the CWO. And we have a lot to catch up with here for our guest tonight because I know he heard the words from last week's guest in this spot. That was of Mr. Joel Cobra, of course, one of the newest additions of CCW in the tag team division with the Modern Day Mafia. So he's got a lot on his chest. So let's get right to it. So without wait for it, further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, pro wrestling star in the heart and soul of the CWO and one half of the CCW Tag Team Champions. That is Dustin. The champ is here. The champ, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Tom? You doing well?
Let me know. Let me know in an hour when my voice is probably a little bit rinkety because I actually didn't take a soda here with me, but that's okay because I said the champ is here and we got to get right to it and obviously congratulations on the big milestone, winning the championship, and what a show it was for the CW. We'll get into it. We have a number of announcements when it comes to the CCW and especially some of your brethren in the CWO, but. I mean, talk about for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio and what it meant to you to win those CCW Tag Team Championships.
Well, not many people know, but this has been on the cards for a while for CWO.
Okay.
We had to make the timing just right. It had to be the right time, the right place, the right moment. If it wasn't the right time, right place, the right moment, it wouldn't have worked. You know, like everybody keeps saying about me and Rob that we're too old, too fat, we're too this, we're too that. But these show different. You know, these do show different. Age and experience in this game, years of busting your ass, pain and tears, blood and sweat, paying your dues, shows that actually using your brain is more wise than actually using your body.
Interesting. Very, very wise words there. It almost sounds like one of those wrestling documentaries that we watch all the time on Sportswire Radio and we speak about. And also, I mean, that's kind of true in a lot of ways because I speak with a lot of different wrestlers. I know we've had you on in the past. We've had Rob on in the past. And at the end of the day, though, I do think in wrestling, age doesn't matter as much as it might. Let's say, for example, you watch the World Cup in football. Obviously, you're not going to see people at a certain age. You watch other things, and boxing is another example. I mean, there are very few fighters that fight after a certain age and have the success that, let's say, you and Rob had or others in the CWO. But I mean, I do think that in wrestling, that psychology, and one wrestler told me this, and this will kind of apply to what you guys have done here, is that you don't have to do the big moves. You don't have to go out there and show, quote unquote, that you're the rock star and show the big drum set and everything else. You go out there, you outwork your opponent, you find ways to do what you have to do, you get the job done. I mean, listen, not that you guys do this, but I mean, Ric Flair was the dirtiest player in the game, and we're still, as crazy as it sounds, still talking about Ric Flair wrestling, which I don't know why, but I mean, there are other examples, but I mean, I think what you said kind of rings true, and that's why I think the CWO has had a very successful second half of 2022, capped off with what you just said.
That's true. That's true. And not only is that just for me and the Rockstar, even our young man, the Hybrid.
We're gonna get to him. We're gonna get to him. Don't worry. I have some things to say on Hybrid. Don't you worry about that.
We've been gelling for a while now, and we've not really been getting a chance as a tag team in CCW at all. And when we have had a chance, we've done what we said we're going to do. We will defeat people. And we will get the win 1, 2, 3. And we've proven that. And when we finally got a chance at these, everybody thought I was down. I was out. Because Pandemus has a little girl called Lilith.
Yep.
Now, Lilith took me down memory lane. Now, it wasn't to distract me. It wasn't to deterrent me from my path. It was actually to open my eyes and let me see my path.
Hmm.
Let me see what I needed to do to get where I need to be. Now, without Lilith, would it have been possible for me to open my eyes and see that and obtain these? God knows. God knows.
Well, those are
Yeah.
some interesting points. I've got a bunch of comments. I'm going to get to everybody here in a second. And we are here with one half of the CCW Tag Team Champions, and his name is Dustin Hart. And also, Dustin, by the way, happy belated birthday, by the way. Speaking of ages,
Thank
that's
you.
you just
Thank
had a
you.
birthday there. So you had a birthday, and
Thank you very
I believe you share the same birth date as my mother, who's I know is not listening to this, but I do wish her a happy belated birthday. No, I can tell you for a fact she's not listening to this, but I do wish her
much.
a happy birthday once again.
Starting every new year with a birthday.
You know what? Well, that's always a good thing. Let me get to a bunch of comments here first. And Taylor Trutz, who I'll have an announcement about Taylor at the end of the show. So, Taylor, thank you for tuning in. I think people will be excited about that. The one and only Dustin Hart. Very much know this individual. Hi, Tom and Dustin Hart. The legend that is. I don't know about that. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for tuning in. Age is just a number. Yeah, listen, I mean, Chris Jericho held the Ring of Honor title for 100 days. I mean, Sting was still talking about in AEW. I mean, Jeff Jarrett, I mean, looks like the same Jeff Jarrett I remember 25 years ago. And Uncle Ralph, who I'm going to get to here in a second, my very good friend who's become a friend of mine lately, Mr. Adam Morgan. Adam has become one of my big supporters on Sportswire Radio. He gave me a very nice message, and I appreciate Adam. And we'll have Adam on here later on, coming up here at the end of the month, so I'll have an announcement for that. The gentleman, Ronnie Thatcher, of course, the man behind Carnage Championship Wrestling. And Ronnie's show is coming up here later this evening. Everybody, please go out and support Ronnie and love what he does. And Prince Dagan is in the house as well. Kind of back off what you said here with the Pandemus thing, but let me ask you something because I want to bring up Uncle Ralph for a second because we'll come back to the Diamond Exchange. We'll come up to all that. But I was curious because Uncle Ralph is in the house and I do happen to like Uncle Ralph. I'm sure that you had heard some of the things that last week's guest in your spot, Mr. Joel Cobra of the Modern Day Mafia, had said, and they were very impressive, just as impressive as you guys were at the Colory Christmas Carol, because they disposed of the working class militia as they are no longer a tag team, and obviously the CWO and the top tier do have some a bit of a history here and kind of been on a collision course at times in CCW. So I wanted to ask you, especially for Uncle Ralph and those that might be watching and listening here that are fans of CCW and have seen the Modern Day Mafia for the first time. I mean, what was your impressions on what Joel Cobra had to say last week live on Sportswire Radio?
Well, to be honest, it didn't surprise us what Joe Cobra said. Yes, these two guys are extremely big giants. You know, standing face to face with me, I'll probably need about 3 or 4 Yellow Pages books before I'll be able to get eye to eye with them, you know what I mean? But that being said, it doesn't matter how big they are. When we are finished with our match at the end of the month, and I'll guarantee you I'm going to destroy the Diamond Exchange with my partner, the Rockstar. We're going to destroy the Diamond. They say it's unbreakable, but we're going to shatter it to pieces. And after that, if Monday Mafia, Uncle Ralph, and Mr. Barris and the board of directors want to have a conversation on how Monday Mafia get a chance at these, it's called walking and paying your dues. Climbing the ladder. Because I've seen a lot of people walking through the curtain of CCW You've been given a lot. In my eyes, you need to pay your dues and bust your ass and prove why you want to be champion. Why they think they need to be champion because they're big guys. No. You need to prove it in the ring. Not just once, not just twice, but over a long period of time.
All right, now those are some fair points, and I can appreciate the dues part, and we all can appreciate the dues parts. But I know you're a very, very intelligent man, despite what some may say or some may think of the different things in the way you look. So I know you're a very, very smart man. You seem very confident tonight. I had you on before, and you're much more confident than the last time. But we always like confidence in life. Confidence is always key, right? But the modern day mafia, I'm very familiar with them, as I'm sure a lot of people are, because I've seen them in other wrestling companies. I've seen them in places like GT Ministries, and I've seen them in some wars. And you kind of touched upon it. I look at the size of Joe Cobra. I look at Dave Douglas. I saw Dave Douglas in the ring not too long ago with Disciple, who's holding 2 world titles. I mean, are you sure that you're this confident on saying some of these things about the modern day mafia? Because I feel like Joe Cobra now, and he said it here with us at the end of the show, he's much more ready. He's much more focused. He has Uncle Ralph in his corner. And on top of that, he's coming off an injury where he's now in the best shape of his life. He's using that as motivation. Are you sure you want to go about it on these different ways?
Well, you just put up a nice little point there. Yeah. He's coming into CCW. What he needs to remember is I am the guy that's been here since day goddamn one. Never had a break, never stepped back. I've carried this company on my back with a few others all the way. This guy's going to come and challenge us anytime for these. He's got to remember, he's got to come in that ring and he's got to get out. He might be a giant. He might be 6.5, 7 foot tall. I'm 5'6", and I'll soon chop him down to size and choke him to pieces. I'm a little whippersnapper, and where I come from, an old little saying, sticks and stones might break my bones, but calling me names doesn't hurt me.
All right, fair enough here. Let me get to a bunch of comments here first, because I do have some more questions about this. Tasman Walker says, hey, we say hello to Tasman. Hybrid, who we'll definitely get to. I promise I have some things I want to say about, of course, your brother and, of course, the new CCW Underground World Heavyweight Champion. Says 3 or 4 Yellow Pages books or a spear from Hybrid. I've got you if you need me. I'm going to definitely come to Hybrid. I've got an announcement with Hybrid as well. We'll definitely speak about him as well. Prince Dagan, of course, our Light in the Dark champion, says Spawn and Persona, future tag champions. Well, right now, I mean, there's a lot of people that might want those titles here. Cubic Zirconia Exchange, more like it. That's kind of a fun. I hadn't thought about it in that way. Modern, yeah, jump in.
That's aimed at a diamond exchange. She's trying to say that a diamond exchange is not actually the diamond exchange. The Zubik.
Yeah, I got that. No, I got that because I thought that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. The modern day mafia, modern day Muppets, giants can be slain. No, listen, and Rockstar Rob Bagwell and Dustin Hart with us here right now. They're not exactly chopped liver. They're the tag team champions for a reason. But certainly when it comes to the modern day mafia, just from experience, because I've covered them, I've had them on when they were in GT Ministries. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Taylor Truth says Uncle Ralph can't maintain success. Look at how he treated the working class militia. Undergrounders for life. Edward Jones, I know Edward very well. How are you, Edward? Good to be with you. Sticks and stones may break bones, but knuckle dusters get the job done. That's a good one. You know, it's funny that I'm going to probably make people chuckle for a second before I come back to this. I was in a bar last night, and one of my friends who watches us from time to time, Steven Solanke, is a security guard. And he said, well, one of the things you can actually do to, when something happens is use, well, brass knuckles, which is kind of like the knuckle duster. So I hadn't thought about that for security guards. Evening, gentlemen. Also, Bat Pigeon is with us. How's it going? Uncle Ralph has a comment first, but I have to bring up enough about me because I'll hold off on my thoughts. Tommy Diamond, of course, the former tag team champions, is here with us, and he says we will get our titles back on the 28th. Is there anything that you would like to say to Tommy Diamond? Of course, one half of the Diamond Exchange, the former champions who you defeated.
Tommy, do you remember when we beat you and we took these titles? And I kneeled down in front of you and I whispered in your ear, remember what I said? On the 28th, we're going to prove that once and for all.
Let me ask you a follow-up with that now that I have Tommy here. And we spent a few minutes on the modern day mafia. I will come back to them. I will come back to Uncle Ralph. But is there a level of concern that potentially you and Dustin could maybe be, in a way, lose focus or maybe overlook the Diamond Exchange and the rematch here and just be focused on the modern day mafia? Is that a concern at all?
Nah, me and Rob, we're fully focused. Sights locked and loaded, ready to go.
All right. All right. I want to take your word for it here. I want to take your word for it because, again, the modern day mafia, they've come in here and they made a statement. Listen, the working class militia, they carried CCW into other companies. They put CCW into places that CCW hadn't been before, and they disposed of them rather easily. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Slugger? We saw what happened with DB here, but let me come back here first to Uncle Ralph, as he says here, they were treated the way they deserved when it came to the working class militia. So I'm going to come back here to Uncle Ralph. Is there anything that maybe you want to relay back to Uncle Ralph when it comes to the modern day mafia?
Well, with the modern day mafia, look, it is respecting where they're due. They are two phenomenal big wrestling guys, yeah?
Very big. I've had them on. I've had them on simultaneously.
When I went to GT Ministries to watch them wrestle, I was impressed.
Remember we spoke about that.
Don't get us wrong, I was impressed. But when they came and invaded us at CCW, I didn't step in the way straight away. I stepped aside, I let they do what they want. But when they started to attack our youth, Bat Pigeon, and people that really didn't mean anything to them and shouldn't be attacked, then the CWO got involved. Then the whole roster came together and evacuated them out of the building. After that, they had a problem with working class militia and moved on from there. For some reason, Uncle Ralph fell out with them. DB and Slugger, they fell out. Now they're destroyed. Now, some may say that's a friendship separated. Some others may say that was Uncle Ralph. Could Uncle Ralph do the same to modern day mafia? Is he just using them to be in the spotlight? Or is it just sticking with things?
See, I'm gonna take a slightly different course when it comes to that because there was something that was referenced quite a bit with Joel, and that was about the Don. A lot was about the Don. So we don't know what this whole premise about where's the Don in this. So at the end of the day, could Uncle Ralph be looking out for Uncle Ralph? Well, you know what? It's all about gold. It's all about getting the gold back. And the modern day mafia could very well be poised to take some gold away. But obviously, first, you've got to get through the Diamond Exchange, and those guys are going to certainly be ready as well. And I have a bunch of more comments, so let me try to work everybody back in. Two chants of that. Dustin Hart, slim and none, I ain't slim. Well, I wasn't going to say that Conor McGregor wasn't slim or was slim, but that's here nor there. Georgia says gold, gold, and more gold, Dustin. Well, Dustin's got some gold. That's a pretty gold right there. It's a pretty piece of gold that he has on here. And Taylor says, witnessing the CWO win tag team gold, hybrid winning the top gold was the Christmas gift of the age. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Ronnie says, don't lie, Dustin. You whispered sweet nothings to him. Zoe Spencer says, good evening. Good evening to you. Tommy Diamond. Let's come back to Tommy for a second. Your win was pure luck. On the 28th, we make this right and put you and the flop star in retirement. What do you like to say to that?
Time's ticking, Tommy. Time's ticking. We will see, won't we?
Time definitely ticks, and as the old adage is, time waits for no one. Colin says Tommy Diamond, the Elite, will regain the tag team belts in 3.5 weeks. Well, I'll tell you what's coming up. I mean, I remember like yesterday we were speaking about the Colory Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Uncle Ralph says, I used no one. Quite simply, if people can't stay focused and listen to sound advice, then they become a liability and have to go. And I will say one thing. I understand the point that people are trying to make about the modern day mafia, but one difference with the working class militia, Slugger was starting to gain success in a different level. Slugger was starting to go out there. We saw what he did in GT Ministries in that Rumble. We saw that he was having matches at a singles level. I don't see that with Joel Cobra and Dave Douglas because I think that Joel Cobra and Dave Douglas are united right now. I think they have a lot of motivation. I think that 22 was not the year that they hoped for a number of reasons, and I kind of think they're here to certainly rectify some of those things here. But we'll come back to all of that, and of course, Uncle Ralph disagrees.
I disagree
Prince,
with Ralph. With me, if somebody's not focused on that, surely that gives you the instinctive to help them more. Us at CWO, we don't just kick somebody to the curb because they're not focused. We've got to help them get focused, put them back on track, make them a better person. Us at CWO, that's what it's about, family. That's how we get through this. We don't kick each other to the curb. We pull each other together, help each other get through it. That's the
well, I
difference.
mean, well, I will give you this much. I will give you, and I always try to be objective at times, but I will give you this much about the CWO. CWO has lasted longer than top tier. I mean, remember in the summer we had top tier, and they had listen, they had the gold, and they were in the spot that you were in, and they lost it. So at the end, and you guys are still standing, and so I mean, I'll give you that much. I mean, that's a point that I think is fair.
Well, what is fair is CWO is actually one of the largest factions in CCW now.
I
I think
understand
we
that.
are now 8 members strong or 9. We are a strong faction, and in 2023, I do believe we are looking for more gold.
More gold. Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I would definitely want to stay tuned. And in the meantime, if you like Colory Championship Wrestling, please follow Colory Championship Wrestling on Facebook. Join the group. Also, I want to give a shout out to the Carnage Championship Wrestling group there on CCW. Please give them a shout out as well. And also here, I want to give a big shout out to Breakout Pro Wrestling that is with us here. Evening Gents, Matt Maxwell from Breakout Pro Wrestling. Breakout Pro Wrestling is starting up here very soon. I know a number of friends of Sportswire Radio that have been on here in the past and probably will be back on once again. We'll be a part of Breakout Wrestling, and I'm excited about Breakout Wrestling, and I'm excited about covering Breakout Wrestling because we know that their shows will be starting up here in a few months. They've also got some merchandise out there, so please follow them on Instagram at Breakout Pro Wrestling. Maybe Dustin and Rob will be there, and others from the CWO, and Matt, if you'd like to get in touch with us, please DM me, and maybe we'll talk Breakout Pro Wrestling down the road. But let me get to a bunch of more comments here. Also, John Rowlandson, of course, love John Rowlandson. Of course, he is one half of the voices of CCW with Mr. Colin McGregor, who I know certainly Dustin and him don't see eye to eye on certain things for obvious reasons. And he says here, these two teams already faced off at this venue last May. The Seaham Youth Center has not been kind to the Diamond Exchange. Boy, that's an excellent point there. Thank you, John, for that. Always love John. John's got a great voice, and always love what John does. Taylor Truth says, I've got no respect for backstabbing turncoats. Boy, that could be interpreted in a number of different ways. Casey Jack Bradley, who's with us. Thank you, Casey. Dustin Hart is the ghostwriter because he's on fire in CCW and will burn the competition. And it's funny he says the ghostwriter. For whatever reason, I think of you look like a biker a little bit because there's a song that is famous from the band Rush, and it was the late Neil Peart, and he wrote the song about ghostwriter. He was a avid later in his life motorcyclist, and he wrote this song while he was actually on a bike ride. So who knows? Maybe that could be Dustin's song, but I'd like something a little more heavier for Dustin because it's not the most heaviest song. Michael Hartley says, yeah, family, the main thing at CCW. I guess you don't have much time to be hanging around old timer. What with having one foot in the grave? I knew you reminded me of someone, Victor Meldrew. Okay. Uncle Ralph says, Dagan, no Judas here, just a sound tactician. Look to your own problems with a Judas sort of your own Judas, Davy deluded. Well, I'm going to let Prince Dagan and Uncle Ralph sort that out. I do think that there is a point to be made, and Joel said that with us here, and I'm going to come back to the CWO in a second, but I do think that there's a point to be made that if you look at with what Joel had to say, that this might be what the modern day mafia was lacking in 2022. They didn't have somebody like an Uncle Ralph that has had the experience, has had the resume and the legacy of turning people into winning gold, winning underground heavyweight titles, winning tag team titles, other titles across the professional wrestling scene in the UK. Uncle Ralph has guided them. And so that could be something that the modern day mafia might need, but that's here nor there. Hybrid says, look at yourself, Dustin. You weren't focused for ages, and Taylor gave you a talking. And look, you're a new tag team champ. I want to talk about the CWO for a second. Obviously, Taylor, I'll have an announcement at the end of the show. I have several announcements toward the end of the show. I'll come to them because we have a lot of guests coming on to Sportswire Radio, and some of them are going to be from CCW and, well, the CWO, hint, hint. But the CWO has the success. You have the tag titles with Rob. Hybrid comes in here, really a new guy. We had Hybrid on, I want to say about 2 weeks or so, just about 2 weeks before the Colory Christmas Carol. And now you guys have these titles. I mean, I'm going to ask you a question and frame it in a different way when it comes to the CWO. Is there pressure, you think, for you, Rob, and now Hybrid to keep these belts and now to go on a long run and show, you know what? CWO now, we're the Giants. We're the guys who are dominant. We're running roughshod here. I mean, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, look, it took us long enough to get these.
Yep.
And if my competition in CCW think that we're just going to sit down and let them take them so easily, they've got another thing coming. They're going to have to prize these out of our cold, dead corpse of a hand. Because we're not going to let them go. We're going to fight through nick and pick through everything to get these off us. I'm telling you, you're going to have to literally kill me to get this off me. Everybody knows how I fight. Everybody knows the lengths I go through to fight for these. I tell you, if modern day mafia, Diamond Exchange, think the last matches were anything, I've got a thing coming, I'm telling you. This next match, nobody knows what type of match it is, but I'll put my suggestions to the board. I want a special type of match. But we all know what CCW board is. They do what they want. They give whatever matches they please. When we ask for certain matches, we don't always get what we want. You never know. They might be eventful. They might give us what we want one day. Like they did with the hardcore matches. And everybody's seen what happened with me in them hardcore matches.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. You said something interesting, and I'm not going to ask you on what stipulation you would want because we have 3.5 weeks away. And I know also, on top of that, your opponents would be listening to this, and they would certainly want to use it in a different way, maybe to not have that match. But why do you feel like that the board hasn't always been on your side? I have one reason of that, and I think that a lot of people want to know about that. And there's, of course, Mr. James Barris, who certainly had maybe, I guess it was probably his worst showing when it comes to a CCW event here since we've basically been up and running here. And obviously BMD, we saw at the beginning of the show, and then obviously what you guys did to him. But when it comes to maybe the problems you're having with management not giving you what you want, champ, maybe that's because Mr. Barris hasn't given you that contract yet still.
Well, funny enough you mentioned that, Tom. The last time I was on your show,
I remember that about 5 months ago, right around 5 months ago today, pretty much. I remember it very well.
And I do remember Mr. Barris and the board putting down the law and saying I was going to get my contract. But yet, I still don't have a contract. And these are part of the reasons why I don't trust the board. You know, if the board is so easily manipulated into not giving me my contract and what I deserve, what I've worked so hard for, why should I believe them in anything else? Why should I trust them?
But you don't have the contract, which is an important part. I mean, are you concerned? Let's say, okay, you've got the titles, so you know that in CCW you're here, right? As long, and I have comments, I'll get to them. But you have these titles, so you've got them here for a while, no question. We'll see. You've got at least 3.5 more weeks with the titles. How much longer after that? Well, that's to be determined. I'll let the matches speak for themselves. But are you concerned in any way that may not be in CCW for as long as you and the rest of the CWO may want? I mean, it's got to be in the back of your mind. We spoke about it 5 months ago, and here we are still today.
We're here today, and to be honest, it's still on the back of my mind. And
I figured that. That's why I asked it.
it's something that plays on my mind daily. And when I come to the shows and I step out from that curtain, I hear that crowd. It's that crowd, them fans, the smiles on the faces, the stories they tell me after the show when they pull us to the side for the photos and the smiles. And
Well, the kids love you guys. The kids do love you guys. I've seen the photos, and I saw the last show, and I could see that the kids love you guys.
It's them little touches, them little stories that keep you doing what you do. It's not about wrestling. It's about doing what's right. Yeah. Now, for me, CCW is what's right. Yeah. But is CCW doing what's right by me?
Well, let me ask you a follow-up to that. When it comes to James Barris, and I understand that there might be a way still that I know that you can get that contract. And is there anything that you might want to say? I mean, don't tip your hand. Don't tip your hand if there's anything out there. But is there anything maybe you'd like to say about that? Because I know that Mr. Barris is out there. I know that Mr. Barris, whether he admits it or not, is certainly very anxious about what you have to say.
At the moment, I'm not going to say a word on that.
Don't tip your hand. I always tell every wrestler at this point, because the word travels that we do all these things on Sportswire. Don't tip your hand. If you know something, don't say it here. Now, everybody would say the opposite. Say it here because it equals ratings, but the word travels here, so make sure you don't. If you know what's on your mind, don't say it.
I've got enough experience in this game to know when to open my mouth and when not to. Everybody in CCW, probably everybody on here who's watching, knows that Barris has got something coming when I choose. Calling Christmas Carol, the CWO had a beautiful Christmas. We all loved Jane Gold. And at the end, Barris got an amazing surprise for Christmas. Barris always thought that I was the creator of Colliery World Order. When in reality, I was just a leader. I was the guy who was given a task to get a group of people who thought the same as me together and to teach James a lesson in loyalties, respect, family, and honour. And when James found out it was his mum that was the creator of CWO, that was just like putting a cherry on top of a cake. And Vicky took his chin.
I wasn't going to bring that up because when we saw that, what happened at the end of the show with Mr. Barris's mom, I mean, that was something that I'm sure Mr. Barris he's still replaying that in his mind. I mean, certainly that was something that, I mean, you could see it. I mean, that crowd there, I mean, and what a crowd there is always. I mean, they just erupted.
Yeah. But now what I said to James that night was the reveal of who created the CWO wasn't the third stage of hell. The third stage of hell is in fact having 3 matches with me. 3 stages of hell. 3 matches of my choice, my choosing, my timing.
I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, that don't seem like hell. That could actually seem like permanent Armageddon. It could seem to be, in Mr. Barris's case, purgatory, which some would say was actually worse than hell. So, I mean, Mr. Barris is certainly as Judas Priest famously sang, may have another thing coming, and certainly it looks like a road to hell could be for him. I do have several comments I haven't got to, so let me try to get to some of those comments. Breakout Pro Wrestling says, thank you for the kind words. Would definitely welcome Dustin at our first show, which we are very close to announcing. Thank you for that, Matt. Christopher Walker says, how's it going, guys? Big shout out to him. Taylor Truth says, with success comes responsibility and pressure to maintain this, which is exactly my point a few minutes ago, because when you think about it, it's easy to get to the title, right? But then you have to stay on top, because staying on top, whether it's anything, whether it's wrestling, whether it's entertainment, whatever it is, right? Music, it's always that challenge. Then you've got everybody now that wants to knock you off because you're the top dog. And certainly the CWO right now are the top dogs in CCW. BMD, who is going to be with us, I believe, next week. I think we're looking at next Friday. Now then, lads, Dustin, when is our Fluffy Bunny rematch? Jamie Max, yeah, jump in for me.
BMD, right?
Yep,
When
BMD.
you, when you
BMD,
are
Northern Enforcer.
when you are up on the next show, right? Lair the Underground. I'll have a competition with you for the Fluffy Bunny Championship, right? Fair game.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll have to ask him about that when he's back on the show next week. And Jamie Mack, want to give Jamie a shout out. Obviously, love Jamie, another person that we owe. At this point, I owe so many people appearances on Sportswire. You have no idea how many messages I get at this point. I even, a hardcore match with Dustin sounds like a fun way to spend a Saturday night in CM. Well, I'll tell you what, James Barris isn't going to be having the fun if that's the case. But I'll let James Barris figure that out, because James Barris right now, very, very tough last several weeks for him. I mean, and that's even with him getting DB Riley to sign a contract. Even still, a very, very difficult last several weeks for Mr. Barris. Taylor Truth says, you've proved you don't need a contract to be the face of CCW. And it's so rare in wrestling, you think about it, right? Dustin Hart is a champion. He's without a contract in CCW, yet he's done all these things. Very, very rare in the professional wrestling world. Very, very rare. Want to give a big shout out here to our very good friend here, Dylan. I know he's been with us also on a number of streams. What up, Dustin? Big fan. What got you started in the hardcore wrestling zone? Want to answer that? It's a good question.
Ooh, what got me started? To be honest, I think it was Mick Foley, and just the style of match he had. And when I seen him, I moved on to things like Hardcore Holly and TNA and EC Dub, things like that. Just escalated. And when I'd done wrestling myself, it was good, really entertaining. Then I'd done a hardcore match, which was just like a tables match at first, a ladders match, chairs match. Then we mixed it up. I felt it a bit more. I liked it. Then we done weapons. Thoroughly enjoyed that. I bled for the first time. It felt like a lot of weight lifted off my head. I really the guy who made me bleed for the first time, he says he'd never seen anybody smile like that before. From then on, things changed and evolved, like you do in wrestling. You know, you never ever stay the same character or person or wrestler when you very first start. Over time, in a period of years, your character will evolve. It's just a natural thing to do.
Absolutely. Listen, I think it applies to anything in life. And I interview a lot of musicians. We're friends with a lot of rock and rollers, R&B artists, hip hoppers. We've done a lot of that stuff. And I always hear in the music world, and I always ask the musician, well, how have you been able to continue your craft and write new music? And they'll always say what you say. Well, you have to always evolve. You always have to keep going. You always have to stay and get out of the box and do things differently. And I think as a wrestler, you're always evolving. And Hardcore Holly was a good one you mentioned, because kind of a guy that maybe in a lot of ways goes under the radar. But if you look at his run in WWE for a long time, he was actually, if I'm not mistaken, he was like second or third on the roster in just longevity. I mean, he was right behind The Undertaker in consecutive years that he was in the WWE, and he had a great run, kind of reinvented his career. And he was kind of one of those guys, if he got in the ring with, that basically, if you were a young talent, he was going to take you to the woodshed, but he was going to do it in a way to kind of help you in terms of helping you that ability into terms of prolonging your career. Think about Cody Rhodes as an example with that, but that's here nor there. I have a bunch of more comments that I'm behind on. Well, very well said, Chick XX. Mr. Mr. Fill in the blanks was very embarrassed. LOL. Vicky Cargill with a heart. BMD says you're funny. Big love, brother. Let me get to Uncle Ralph here first before I come up to some other people. Tom, I have always acknowledged the fact that Dustin has always been one of the hardest workers in CCW. He has been treated appallingly by Barris. So these three stages of hell have come down on him by his vindictive behavior. Having that said, I will be delighted for the modern day mafia to relieve them of the tag belts. I mean, that's kind of goes back, Dustin, and I got to bring this up. It goes back to what I said a little while ago because it does seem like in some ways CWO could be preoccupied. Diamond Exchange, your war with Barris, and then the modern day mafia kind of come in from under the rug and kind of take those belts. Are you sure that's what Uncle Ralph is saying? What we've kind of talked about here.
Steps. We've got it all in steps. We've got it
Okay,
fine.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that everybody hears that live on Sportswire Radio, and we are here with Mr. Dustin Hart, and my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. You can also continue to follow us on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Over 500 followers, so thank you everybody for that. Also, YouTube, we are on at Sportswire Radio. I'll have some announcements, a bunch of announcements regarding the CWO and some other people here at the end of the show. I'll save them for the end because we have a lot still to get to here with Dustin Hart. I got a lot of comments, so I'll try to get going here over the next 20 or so minutes. And also, Jamie Mack says, Barris in a hardcore match sounds hilarious. Mess him up, Dustin. Well, I'll tell you what, after what BMD did to James Barris, if James Barris did it in a hardcore match with Dustin Hart, I would certainly say for Mr. Barris, the jig might be up on you, buddy. The jig might be up. But that's something I'm sure Barris himself will have to find out. Taylor Trude says, love Hardcore Holly. I've actually met him, and he was super great. Yeah, I think I read his book. I'm pretty sure he had a book, and I read him, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago. Then I caught him. It was on satellite radio. He did an interview, and I was surprised at how much of a well-spoken individual that he was. So that's an excellent point there. And Gentleman Ronnie Thatcher says, good old spark plug. It's funny he said that because I'm thinking about, I still have them somewhere. And for whatever reason, because I've got so much boxes on them in my garage, I have the magazine from the old WWF magazines where Sparkplug, I'm pretty sure it debuted. I know I have it. So I actually, if I pull that out somewhere, I did a watch along on Saturday before New Year's Eve I bought the first ever AEW trading card set. If I did the WWF magazine watch along, I'd probably get like 10 million views, but I would take me 10 million years to probably get them out of my basement because I have so many boxes buried underneath them, but they are in mint condition. So that's something I'll keep an eye on. But here nor there, the CWO have never been more focused. We know what's at stake. Well, it sounds like that so far. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that here. Of the proper Crumblies in here, Hollywood, Bob Holly, and Smoky Mountain. Yeah, Smoky Mountain kind of gets lost in the shuffle there. I mean, Smoky Mountain, I was hearing, I think it was Bully Ray talk about Jim Cornette, and Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman didn't like each other because of ECW kind of usurped Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which I hadn't thought about. Santa Dagan says, I know something the CWO doesn't have and will never have, the Light in the Dark Championship. That's a great point, and I want to come to that in a second. We saw that Hybrid and Prince Dagan had a war. Hybrid was on here before that, and certainly the match ended for unfortunate reasons and such. And you talked about a little while ago about the fact you want more gold here for the CWO. And I mean, there has to be in the back of your mind some unfinished business there for the CWO when it comes to the Light in the Dark Championship. And talk to me about that.
Is that a challenge like Dagon? Listen, you remember who you're talking to. You don't mention my name unless you want to fight. Remember, you're going to step up to me, you step up to me, right? You want to put my name into your mouth and speak? Put some gold up there and prove.
So I would say then, would it be fair to say, and I know we spoke about a lot here, that you wouldn't mind accumulating some singles gold out there in addition to those tag belts that you have?
I've got room for some more.
You do. Well,
I've
I
got,
see you have two shoulders, obviously, right? Two shoulders. So I guess you could
I'm
have another.
always happy to go for some more gold. Whether I win it or I don't win it, it's always an experience in learning how to wrestle different people.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, listen, Disciple's got two world titles around right now, and I'll have an announcement about Disciple at the end of the show. I mean, listen, Roman Reigns has got those two belts. So at the end of the day, I guess it wouldn't be far fetched. I mean, Kenny Omega had like 17,000 belts for 2021 to 22. So, I mean, why not here? And Taylor says, I'm no leader. However, I'm a motivator, and I've shown that I can do that very well. John Rowlandson says, two words, KT Gold. Pandemus Liliac needs to stay out of the CWO business. Freebird CW, I mean the Freebird rule and stuff. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. It's a simple question, and you're probably going to say, wow, why did he ask that question? But I've been asking every wrestler this question since the end of last month, and now you're the second person that we've had on here and the first that has gold here in 2023. So I'm going to ask you, though, in a two-pronged way. What are your goals in 2023, and what's the CWO's goals in 2023?
My personal goals. My
Yeah.
personal goals.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't actually involve this. My personal goal actually involves this.
Wow.
This is the CCW Women's Pit Brow Championship. Now, this unfortunately does not have any competitors. So, in the upcoming months, I am going to invite all and any women competitors who think they are hard enough, not that can wrestle. I know women out there that can wrestle, but who think they are hard enough and have what it takes to come and fight in the underground tournament for this Pit Brow Championship. Now, this Pit Brow Championship, these aren't going to be normal matches. Not too many details right now, because I don't want to spoil. But these women, they're in for a wake-up call.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, this was something that we literally didn't see coming. I mean, this is a bombshell. And bring up that championship belt one more time on the screen, because that championship belt, Dustin, I mean, that is really one of the more prettier belts I've seen. And you've got a pretty belt in your own right. But looking at that championship, you know what? I would want that championship over the women's title in AEW. I would want that over the women's title in the WWE. And I look at that championship right now. Look at that pretty piece of gold there. I mean, that's a gold that you are going to have to earn, and maybe some. I mean, that's a championship that whoever the women are that come into CCW for that championship, I mean, and there are some top flight women's wrestlers, not just in the UK, but all over the world here. And that's a championship that, I mean, you're going to have to really fight for that championship. So we'll certainly, I'm sure, find out more about that here in the coming weeks and months. And I'm sure very, very soon here as CCW marches on to another show, a sold out show here coming up on January the 28th. And you go to the Coloring Championship Wrestling Facebook pages for more information on Instagram as well. And also here, Taylor says that belt deserves wars over it. Oh, I think that you're going to get wars, and I hate to say it, but you're going to get world wars over I don't want to say Zelensky and Putin, but you're going to get wars that are going to certainly be people are going to be talking about for years and years and years. Sign me up. I'll give them hell for that belt. So I think you might have one person already that might want to take a crack at that championship. And
Dame. I don't know if they want to go that extreme.
well, I'll tell you what, we very well may have to find out. I'll tell you that. And Hammerhead Smiths here says 2023 is upon us this year, and I'm coming for everything. I'm not waiting for the opportunities to arise. I'm taking them. And Dustin, you know exactly what I want. I mean, when I talk about taking what's mine. Okay, well, Hammerhead Smith will certainly find out for that.
Fair words. Fair words.
It's certainly fair words, but we'll find out if he gets that opportunity. Jamie Mack says, I know a woman that's going to be working hard to get a shot at that women's championship in 2015. Well, I'll tell you what, I think there's going to be a lot of women. No, I think a lot of women, what you just said. I mean, I'll tell you what, I mean, that's a very, very big development here that we just heard on Sportswire Radio. And we're used to getting developments, but that is something that we didn't see here coming by a long shot. So obviously, good luck to those who enter, and congratulations on whoever comes our way with that championship. And I'm sure we'll cover it here on Sportswire Radio. But I wanted to ask you a question, another simple question here first, but I'm sure I'll get a certainly interesting answer. And give me your final words before the 28th of January for the Diamond Exchange before you see them in the ring. What do you want to say to them? Because I know that they're watching. I know Walker and Tommy, they're out there still. And what do you want to say to them before you see them again in the ring?
Walker and Tommy. 28th. You two are going to learn what family and having each other's backs really mean. The CWO, pardon me, the CWO are a real family. Unlike you lot are nothing but a set of thugs, degenerates. We are actually a family that care about each other, care about our best interests, about each other's interests. 28th, we're going to shatter the diamond.
Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't got a chance to follow CCW and you haven't got a chance to get out there and go see the guys, you definitely need to find a way to do so. And I want to give a shout out to our guest coming up here in a couple of weeks on the 24th of January, who'll be in your chair. That is the Cult of Killjoy himself, Mr. Dan Robertson. And Dan Robertson has made a name for himself in places like Nonstop Action Wrestling. Seen him in GT Ministries, Blackheart Wrestling, and he says, impressive mohawk. Well, it is an impressive mohawk. I will tell you. Did you ever play in a punk band? I always wanted to ask, you ever play in a band or something? You ever play in a band?
No, never.
Oh,
Never. This
okay.
Mohawk came about when we created CCW.
Okay.
We
All
had
right.
an idea for me, and this grew in time.
I'm trying to think of all the legendary punkers that had a mohawk, and I'm thinking, wow, I should have asked you that 5 months ago. I'm like, you know what? Did he play in a band at all? Because you do see a lot of crossover now between music and wrestling, which I think is great. Because I don't think I've said this before on air, but I actually kind of got my start in and speaking. I actually was I was in school. I was actually on a street team for Anthrax. Had an album. I think it was the last one with John Bush. We're talking like 2004. I was still in school, and I handed out flyers in Manhattan for the album. And I was like, wow, that's my first start in public speaking. But CWO equals Crow World Order. Okay, I hadn't thought about the Crow World Order reference. And that's after it had a trim as well. Wow, I didn't realize the trim, but I guess that's a good point. I think Gemma would know. It really is an impressive mohawk. It stood firm after a few hefty shots with that baking tray. Yeah, I'm thinking about. I think it was in Green Day. Was it Billy? I think not Billy. It was the bass player, I think, that had a mohawk. And then some 41. It was Derek Willoughby had the mohawk. Then I'm thinking of. I think it was in the Clash. I think Sid Vicious had a mohawk. I mean, there's a list of people that have had the mohawks, and I'm sure we could go down. And I'm very paradoxical in that I'm a small bird with a big pecker. Well, I tell you what, I am going to say that you have any relations to the Twitter icon? That's what I would probably say first. But I don't want to say anything too incriminating, but I would say we'll pull it up one more time. I'm a small bird with a big pecker. Well, maybe that could be the Twitter icon there, but
Hello,
and
because
Travis Barker, yeah, I forgot. You know what? And thank you, Gemma, for that. Travis Barker did have a mohawk, but I always feel like with Travis Barker, I feel like he lost me a little bit. But that's here nor there. But obviously, good point. I'm sure we can have a whole list of mohawk references, and I'm sure I'll probably miss at least 4 or 5 others. But I want to ask you a couple quick questions here before I get to closing thoughts, and I'll get to my announcement at the end. But anything else you might want to say to the modern day mafia? Because I know that the fans certainly aren't too thrilled about them. I don't want to make it about you and the modern day mafia just yet because you got a lot of other things. But I mean, I'm sure that you're going to be joining others and maybe giving them the treatment that the fans may want, to some may say. But anything you might want to share to them, what they can expect in CCW for them here in 2023?
well, if they think that they're going to walk in and people's just going to lay down for them, they've got another thing coming. Because not just the CWO, we're not just going to be the only ones that's going to stand and fight. They'll find that every other person, every other tag team out there in CCW, they're going to stand and give them 110% every time. They think they're going to walk in and take over. They've got another thing coming. Everybody's going to give it. Everybody's going to fight 110%. Don't matter who it is, whether it's the Flock of Justice, what's left of the Chuckle Crew, Pandemus, CWO, the Elite. Doesn't make a difference. Everybody's going to fight as hard as each other. Modern day mafia, it's not going to be as easy as what you think.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. You said something interesting here before I get to closing thoughts. You talked about a lot of those groups, and those groups are, I don't want to say a shell of themselves, but they're certainly weakened. Let's put it that way, right? All those groups, the Chuckle Group, Elite, you could throw out there, a bunch of other groups, Pandemus, Top Tier is pretty much no longer top tier at all.
That hasn't broken the CWO.
And that was exactly my point that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Dustin Hart, the belated birthday boy. How do you avoid then not being what those groups were? Because all those groups, Pandemus, Top Tier, Chuckle Group, Elite, they're all weakened or no longer. So how do you guys avoid not joining them?
Because you said it yourself, they are groups. CWO, a family. Familiar.
Interesting point. It's funny that you said that because going back to my coverage when we do sports on Sportswire Radio and we do basketball, and I would always ask these coaches, well, how does your team win? How does you stay successful? And they say, well, we're a family. And I guess that might apply for the CWO. And let me ask you then something else I wasn't going to ask you. And I have Uncle Ralph. I'll get Uncle Ralph in here before we get to closing thoughts and my announcements. But are you guys, do you think maybe we'll have more members in 2023? Is that something I should go out and ask? I mean, don't say anything if you know something, but I'll ask it.
Time will tell, and no is never an option.
All right, I'll tell you what. Well, that's certainly fair points, and also Robin wants to make me remember. Don't forget the Flock of Justice. Thank you, Robin, for bringing that up. I appreciate that, and I certainly don't want to leave out anybody. Uncle Ralph says no one has said it will be easy, but it is inevitable. Well, that could be. Well, I'll tell you what. Stay tuned. I mean, time definitely moves, right? I mean, the clock doesn't wait for no one, so we'll find out. I mean, listen, but first. The CWO, Dustin Hart, and Rockstar Rob Bagwell, they're going to have their hands full in a rematch with the Diamond Exchange for those tag team championships. So that's first things first. Whatever the modern day mafia does, I'm sure we'll speak about that. And Uncle Ralph and the Don will have a lot to say about that. And also, if the CWO ever needed a pet bird, the crow is the way to go. So, well, you guys don't seem like you'd want to have a parrot. If you're going to have pets, you don't seem like the parrot type. So maybe the pet bird might be the way to go.
If I need, I'll bring a pound of the underground up.
We fight together, we fall together, we rise together, we win together, we lose together. However, we are forever. That is an excellent, excellent point. And those are points that we'll find out if they work out to be. A lot here in CCW. The CCW landscape and the CWO landscape is certainly in for a really, really big 2023. And we certainly hope to be covering it here on Sportswire Radio. And always a treat to have on, Dustin. One more fun question before I get to closing thoughts. I had to ask you this question. What'd you do for your birthday?
I went training.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know what? That might have been the best birthday gift because you are the champion, right? You have to stay on top. So you can't take a day off. You can't go out there and have a cheat day. You can't go out there and just indulge yourself into alcohol and cake. No, you got to go out there and get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Go out there and run like Rocky did. Go out there and hit the gym, lift the weights for a couple of hours, and go out there and get that sleep. So you know what? That's why you're the champion for a reason. So you know what? That's probably the answer that everybody should have on their birthday. So I'll tell you what, that's a fair point. And Michael Hartley says Uncle Ralph going to get a shock, and he's going to find out that family is the strongest bond in this world. I'll tell you what, the fans love the CWO. We love the CCW fans here on Sportswire Radio. The Underground joins with the Sky to defeat the Earthling Poolheads. Top tier. Well, they ain't top no more. They really don't exist. I mean, but it's a new group with maybe Uncle Ralph and the Modern Day Mafia, but the top tier that we know it does not exist. Been a great show tonight, gentlemen. Hybrid, stay tuned for closing thoughts because I got a couple of announcements that you're going to certainly want to pay attention to. And Ronnie Thatcher, who's going to have his show here in about an hour and 25 minutes. You say family, Dustin, don't talk. You would stab every one of them in the back for a pack of fill in the blank, you mug. Well, I'll tell you what, that might be so, but it seems like so far tonight, the CWO look very strong. The future of the CWO looks very, very gold-like, and we'll find out if CCW is in for more dominance from the CWO in the near and distant future. So, my friend, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything that you want to plug, share, say. And congratulations again on winning those championships. I can see that they mean a lot to you and obviously your tag team partner, Rockstar Rob Bagwell. So I turn it over to you. Anything else you want to plug, share, say? And the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your time and patience on the show and putting up with some of the prats that the things they say, because
No, we're used to it by now on Sportswire. I think you've seen and you've been here before. I think you're used to it, and you know we're used to it.
Yeah. As for the rest of the roster, you want my gold, you better step up. And normally you'd hear me say you better bring 110% and bring your A game. You better bring a goddamn more than that, because we are the Underground Brotherhood. We are CWO. I'll never back down. We'll never retreat. I'll never, ever surrender. And we are for life. Champ's word.
Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, will the CWO's run as champions be too sweet? We'll have to find out because they said they're for life, right? The NWO. And also, John Rawlinson, before I get to my closing thoughts here, says that the word that Ronnie Thatcher had said is clarification for cigarettes. I kind of figured that, but I just because somebody's out there, I didn't want to say it because, who knows out there. And we do have a lot of people all over the world that might not know that, but I actually thought about that, John Rawlinson, because I thought about the days when my father was a cigarette smoker and he used to smoke Benson and Hedges. And I'm pretty sure I heard that reference as a little kid. So that's okay. So no harm, no foul, as they might say. Also, Robin Crow says Crow Championship Wrestling, CAW. But obviously, you've heard a lot from Dustin Hart tonight, and you're going to see him back in the ring here on January the 28th in a rematch for those CCW Tag Team Championships against the Diamond Exchange's Tommy Diamond and Walker Wall Street. Certainly a lot to get into here, and I have a feeling that Walker Wall Street and Tommy Diamond will certainly want to follow up and show that they can get those championships. And also the announcement here of a women's championship on the way here in CCW, and that is a pretty belt here, ladies and gentlemen. That is a belt that I think women from all over the world here. I mean, listen, Ronda Rousey might want that belt, and listen, Becky Lynch might want that belt. Dr. Britt Baker might want that belt. Thunder Rosa, who knows? Maybe Charlotte Flair, if she's not busy, she might want that championship. I mean, Deonna Purrazzo, Mickie James, she might have to retire next week. I mean, Jordan Lynn Grace, we can go on. Kiera Hogan, you name a women's wrestler. In the UK, even, you want to think about Lana Austin, who's the LWF champion, Tonga, Alexis Falcon, I mean, Lily Winter, I mean, Harley Hudson, who's on a run right now. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that might want that championship. And we'll find out more about that. But I do have a bunch of announcements. At first, let me get to the CWO announcements here for you, Dustin Hart, because leading off here first, on January the 17th, I think about 9 o'clock or so my time, after 15 o'clock your time, we're going to have on your brethren in the CWO, the underground heavyweight champion of the world. Hybrid is back in the house. He has a lot to say, a lot to get off his mind, because he is going to also be in a rematch with Mad Max Cooper for that underground heavyweight championship. So the rematches are going to be galore in CCW on the 28th of January, and Hybrid's going to have a lot to say about that. He is going to speak about winning the championship, what it meant to him, certainly some of the things that you've said, maybe the future of the CWO, and Hybrid has made such a big impact here over a short amount of time here that he's been here. So I am looking forward to that. And Hybrid, who is with us, says stupidly he wants a submission match. Well, I'm going to ask you about that, Hybrid, and I have no doubt that Mad Max is going to have some things to say about that. And Jamie says it would be awesome to see Harley Hudson in CCW. Yeah, I would love to see Harley Hudson in CCW because I've covered her in the LWF, and I've seen her also wrestle against some of your brethren in the CWO, and that would be Summer. I know Rockstar Rock Bagwell knows very well. So I actually saw that match on YouTube not too long ago. Somebody actually, a birdie, forwarded me that match. So yes, I would love to see Harley Hudson in the CCW roster and compete for that belt. And also, another CWO announcement for you, Dustin Hart. January the 26th, just 2 days before the big show, Taylor Truths is making his debut on Sportswire Radio. That is going to be one for the ages. The earths or the microphones very well may rumble when Taylor Truths is in the house here in your spot coming up on January the 26th. Really excited about this here. Taylor has been somebody we've wanted to have on for a very long time on Sportswire. So I'm really excited about this and speaking about Taylor, and certainly looking forward to maybe getting to the brains, maybe as some might say, in the CWO. So really excited about that. So thank you, Taylor, for granting us this opportunity. And also Jamie says, always good to hear from Taylor Truths. And I got to get Jamie on here one of these days. I have to get almost a lot of people on Sportswire. So Jamie is also on the list here, and also says, the smooth talker and the deer stalker lands on Sportswire. Boy, this is going to be one for the ages here. There's going to be a lot of fun. Really excited to be with Taylor, and also a few more announcements I'd like to get off before we go on the air here. I have a double header next Thursday on Sportswire. This is a big one here because if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to want to see this. We have the debut of Gina. And Gina, we've seen all over the place. Gina has been in death matches here, and Gina has been a part of GT Ministries. And Gina is also going to be wrestling in the United States, I hear, possibly from a birdie. That could very well be happening in the near and distant future. And most notably, Gina has a lot to say. We've seen Gina have some wars with different people in different places. We're going to speak about that here on Sportswire Radio on January the 12th. And then right afterwards, we're going to have on, which I'm sure somebody in CCW I know is going to try to contact, because he's got not one, but two world championships. That is the reigning defending GT Ministries World Champion and the Nonstop Action Wrestling World Class Champion. His name is Disciple. He is the head of the table here at Sportswire Radio. And not only did he dispose of Gareth Angel, who we haven't seen since in GT Ministries, Tommy Dillon, who was the Nonstop Action Wrestling World Class title holder, he disposed of him. And he's also now, Disciple, going to be in the ring coming up here against Bentley January the 21st at the next GT Ministries show, the weekend before the CCW show, and he's going to be wrestling the Wrestle Island World Champion, the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera, at the Tommy Dillon Hospice for Kirkwood show coming up here on February the 4th. So Disciple, and on top of that, he has a lot to say, and who knows what he's going to say. That is going to be on January the 12th, next Thursday, around 9 o'clock British Standard Time. So Disciple is going to have always something to say here. And also, we're going to have on the Lawman Kyle Kennedy, who was supposed to be in CCW, was supposed to have wrestled for a Hybrids title, but he's going to be back here. He's going to have a lot to say at 8 o'clock British Standard Time. So the Lawman's going to have a lot to say about Nonstop Action Wrestling. I'm sure you and CCW, GT Ministries, the Lawman is back in the house. The Lawman is going to have a lot to say. And before we get out of here and get to see your title one more time on your shoulders, I think Dame Flaps would be a great guest. Yes, we will definitely get Dame on in the future. I just have so many people that want to come on that I have to get on first. But yes, definitely we'll do that. Also want to give a shout out to last week's guest, Mr. C2K, says hello. So you've got all those announcements here on Sportswire Radio. So in the meantime, if you're on sportnarium.com/play, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're a CCW fan, go over to Ronnie Thatcher's group here in about an hour or so, an hour and 15 minutes. And certainly, again, if you are a fan of Dustin Hart, continue to support him. And also C2K, who's from my neck of the woods in upstate New York, says he's a big fan of yours. He says he's been watching your content. He's actually messaged me. He saw some CCW footage out there on Facebook, and he says he joined the group and says Dustin Hart is the best. And C2K, join the Colory Championship Wrestling group on Facebook. Join the Carnage Wrestling page on Facebook as well. You can do that as well. So please go to the Carnage Championship Wrestling group on Facebook and join that as well and support our great brethren. So thank you as always, my friend. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you are on Sportswire Radio, we will be back here with live coverage Friday night with Mr. ALP, 8:30 p.m. We'll speak all things related to Knockout Wrestling. And thank you, everybody. Congratulations, champ. We'll definitely see a lot from you, I know, with your CWO brethren, January the 17th and January the 26th. And we are here on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in. We'll be back here Friday night. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Good night, everyone.